Hey YouTube world, what's going on? Mark here from TST Industries, back in the garage with yet another installation video. And today, as you can see behind me, we will be installing our LED pod turn signals on this Yamaha TW200. We are going to be focusing on installing these on the rear of the bike. So if you want to see how to install them on the front of that model, be sure to check out that separate installation video, also available on our YouTube channel. This is a pretty straightforward installation process. I will be using our BL6 turn signals, but this process can be followed if you are purchasing our Echo Pod turn signals or our ARO 18 signals as well. No mounting hardware is needed, and this is important to note that we will be installing these signals with the OEM fender and tail light attached. If you want to see our integrated tail light that we have for this model and use external signals as well, we have a separate video for that as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. Coming over to the bike, as you can see, the rear signal is pretty accessible and it's mounted directly onto the subframe. And believe it or not, accessing the terminals for them, for both signals, is actually pretty easy. They are just bullet connectors, so we don't have to fuss and fight with specific connectors with locking tabs and such. And to gain access to the right side turn signal connectors, you actually just want to lift up on this fairing panel. It's just fastened in with a friction fastener. So if you just pry it up with a little bit of force, you can actually gain access to your turn signal wires right there and disconnect them. So let's go ahead and do that now. And the wires for the left turn signal are actually zip tied to the subframe, a little cross member on the subframe. So let's go ahead and show you that. Coming underneath the bike, you can actually see the two other terminals pressed up against this underside of the fairing, and this does follow the left turn signal. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect those wires as well. Now our signals are free. You can actually snake this through. If you want to cut the zip tie, you can. I thought about cutting it, but I'm actually going to leave it there so we can use it in the future when we go ahead and install our turn signals. I'm going to snake the wires for both turn signals out so they are free. Then I'll grab our tool. We have a 17mm wrench. So we'll just use this box end of it. Just twist the signal. It's much easier. Remove the locking nut, and now you are free to remove the signal from the subframe and the fairing holder. We'll copy that step for the opposite side as well. It's important to note this is a 2006 model TW200. This process can be followed from the very earliest late 80s models all the way up to the 2022 model. The older the model, the more solidified some of these parts will be on your bike, so little hacks like the one I just did with twisting the signal rather than the nut might be easier to perform than trying to do the more logical thing. Now we can go ahead and grab our BL6 turn signal. I'm going to follow this procedure on the right hand side of the bike, and then we will just repeat this for the left side. I do want to point out that these are side specific. TST Industries writing on the back of the light dictates which way they should be facing, and if you can't read, that's okay. The side with the curve on the top should be on the top, underside is flat, so that's an easy way to figure out what side is which. So let's go ahead and grab our right side specific turn signal. We're going to remove the locking nut and the crush washer. There's two washers on this assembly. We want to keep the crush washer with the nut, and then the flat washer will remain against the signal. We're going to snake the wires through. Let me go ahead and hop on over to this side. There we are. Grab my wires and feed the crush washer through, and then the locking nut, one connector at a time. And like I said, these are just bullet connectors on the bike. They're bullet connectors on our signals. So you don't need any mounting plates or adapters or any of the extra hardware that you may normally need on some of these newer models. Make sure that the signal is facing the back of the bike. That's what good are rear turn signals if they're not facing the rear. That signal is pretty secure on the bike. We're going to use our 12mm box wrench in order to tighten that nut down. But before I do that, let's go ahead and route these wires as they were from the factory. So we're going to go over this subframe brace, bring this out, and then we have the connectors. It's important to note that the connectors on the bike are 4.5mm bullet connectors. We use 3.5mm bullet connectors. So as you insert these, you do want to use a tool to crimp them down and create a secure connection. Before we do that, we do just want to test everything out, make sure they work. So we have two wires here, black and green. Green will go to yellow, and black to black. And like I said, let's just test this out. And the signal does illuminate. Now you can see it's not flashing. That is because we haven't installed our LED flasher relay and the diode harness needed on this particular bike. We have a separate video for that. Both are plug and play. The relay is located right behind this fairing. It's actually easily accessible right here. And the diode is a simple connection behind the headlight unit. Both are plug and play, extremely easy to install. And we'll make sure that if you're installing LED signals on this bike, they actually flash at the appropriate rate. So let's go ahead and crimp these connectors on to our bullet connectors, make sure the wires are tucked away, and then we'll follow this process on the opposite side and be all good to go. Now that we know the signals work, we're actually going to remove these connections and we're going to peel these rubber sleeves back on the bike side of the signal wires. And the reason for doing this is the bullet connectors on this bike by default are a 4.5mm bullet connector. All of our signals, as most aftermarket turn signals, will have a 3.5 bullet connector terminal. So what you want to do is grab a pair of needle nose pliers, channel locks, something with a bite that you can control and modulate by hand. And you want to very gently just squeeze them to make them a little bit tighter. And that will allow the bullet connectors at this point on our signals to slide in more securely, lock in place, and then we can slip the rubber sleeve back over, securing that connection. And voila. With that complete, we can go ahead and now snake these wires as they were. Press down on this fairing piece, locking it in place. Double check your work. Make sure the signals turn on, which they do. And we could repeat these steps on the opposite side. And with that, this installation is now complete. As you can see, it really cleans up the rear, gets rid of those big pumpkin signals that were on the rear of this bike, and installs something more modern with LEDs instead of an incandescent bulb. Be sure to remember that if you install LEDs on this bike, you do need our relay and diode harness. Check out our other installation video for more information on that. If you want to see these products or any other products available for the TW200 or any other bike you may have in your garage, be sure to stop by our website, tstindustries.com. The link is in the description to this video. As always, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and turn that notification bell on. Be sure to check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all username TST Industries. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the field below. But for now, this is Mark from TST Industries. Catch you guys next time.